For the first time, James Gladstone made what I think is a very, very questionable trade to acquire an offensive lineman. I'll tell you what that means here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Jaguars Nation, I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Join all the action at FanDuel.com to play daily dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a homer this Major League Baseball season. Hopefully we hit a home run with you today. I'll tell you where we're going to get started at. At the end of the show, we'll talk about answers that need finding. In the middle of the show, discuss the questionable trade that I mentioned in the opener. But James Gladstone is under pressure, and that is what we're going to talk about today. This is no breaking news. James Gladstone thrives under pressure. He's been under pressure since he got this job. Young, energetic, different, speaks a little differently than everyone else. He has the experience, but he doesn't look experienced. How about that? He doesn't look like he's put out a whole bunch of cigars and a whole bunch of ashtrays, right? He just doesn't look that way. So that leads some people to always question his ability. And I have been a defender of James Gladstone. Not that he needs me to defend him. He doesn't. He 13-4. That's all you need. Less needs endorsement. Some of the things that we've heard that he was integral in making happen when he was in Los Angeles, in that building, in that room, in the second in command. He's a second in command at some point of a personnel department that have won a Super Bowl, and he's been a part of it. So let's not act like James Gladstone just fell off of a tree somewhere and all of a sudden, it just came out of fantasy football world or whatever. That didn't happen. The dude earned his spot here, and we know that. But he isn't above criticism. Everybody gets criticism. People are questioning the Chiefs and the Ravens now, and they got Super Bowls with an S, plural, right? It does not mean that you don't make mistakes. I remember John Schneider, the GM for Seattle, he was under fire a few years back from some draft picks. When he picked a guard out of Alabama in the first round, and Nick Saban was right there at the draft and said, he did what? They did what? Like, they took my player who I don't even think deserves to go that high. So, and that's what everybody read into that. So you're not always going to make everyone happy with your draft picks. And certainly we saw that this year with all of the fuss about the consensus board, with the Nate Borkacher draft pick and the Jaguars having their own consensus board, and me defending them, and Liam saying some things and Tony saying some things like, we trust the people in our building. All of those things are true. But just like 13-4 allows you to be given a bit of benefit of the doubt or a mulligan, so does when certain aspects of your team looks like after 2 off seasons, look like, okay, we ain't quite there yet. I think it takes at least 3 years, three cycles in drafting and free agency to really have your imprint on a team. Some don't believe that. It may change when you have instant success like the Jaguars had in year one, and like other teams around the National Football League in their first year of a regime change have success. Think back when Doug Peterson was hired and Trent Baalke took over football operations as really the head guy instead of having to answer to Urban Meyer. And that's what we assumed that it was anyway. The first year they went to the playoffs, won a playoff game, a home playoff game, and a 27-0 comeback. Went and played very admirably on the road against Kansas City. Remember when the Chiefs beat the Jaguars? Trevor was standing in the tunnel shaking people's hands. It changes. Your perception that other people have of you changes. So you get the benefit of the doubt when that happens, right? Well, now everyone expects more. Even the Jaguar fan base expects more, even though all of us are learning how to have higher expectations and not think about the past where every time this happened before, the Jaguars came and lost the next. See, I'm trying not to have that kind of, I'm not trying not to have it. I don't have it because I'm just not that type of person. I believe new starts, new beginnings, and all of that other stuff the Stockholm Syndrome stuff I talk about, it doesn't have anything to do with what is happening moving forward. That being said, it does not mean that everything that they do, I agree with. And I don't have to agree with it from their perspective. I'm not a part of the process. But in terms of me being able to come here and honestly talk to you guys each and every day, can I tell you that everything that they've done is what I expected? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Can I tell you that I don't even think I hear an inkling of discussions about contract extensions for certain players that I would hope that they sign? Absolutely. I don't hear anything about Antonio Johnson. I don't hear anything about Parker Washington. And trust me, I'm asking, right? And I'm not asking people just from the Jaguar side. I don't hear anything about those guys getting extensions. And granted, they don't have to do that. They got to be careful, though, because some people believe that once we get past week 3 or 4, we're just going to ride it out into free agency and you're going to have to use tags. I'm not, and that's not me giving out personal information. I just know the way that this works. And the way that this works is you got to make a decision sometimes before you think you have to make a decision, right? So for me, it's sort of a good moment to have right now where I don't agree with something or a couple of things that have happened. I've told y'all I did not agree with them taking Wyatt Milum. It's because a person that I trust in that world told me that Wyatt Milum wasn't going to be very good in the NFL. It doesn't mean that I had to come out here and campaign against it. No. So when I come on here and I explain why they take Wyatt Milum and what they hope, that is from their perspective of them taking it. That's what y'all want to hear. I think you want to hear why the team did what they did, and maybe a little bit of what I think about it, but not what I do. Once something is done, what good would it be explaining to you who I would have picked instead of Wyatt Milum? You know, maybe some people like that, but I'm not that way. But I will tell you that if you're a defender of James Gladstone, you don't have to do it too much longer, because whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Whatever people are going to say are going to say. Whatever product is on the field, wherever they're deficient, whatever draft pick doesn't work, whatever draft pick they should have taken. And the Jaguars don't operate that way. If they had some disagreement about who to take, and then they decided, the consensus came down to, the decision makers came down to them taking one guy. If the other guy goes and starts to be an all-pro, they don't think about that. They said, hey, let it go. Just move on. We know why we made our decision. Let's just keep moving forward. So ain't going to be no backtracking. But from the fans, the people that listen to these podcasts, oh, trust me, I'm still getting little messages and DMs from fans that they should have taken this guy, taken that guy. I always bring up one of the picks that they traded away was used on Rob Gronkowski. And the player that they used that pick on didn't even get a second contract here in Jacksonville. I believe it was Dwayne Gratz, if I'm not mistaken. If it wasn't him, it was somebody around. They used a pick on somebody. They used a pick on a defensive tackle once that could have been Des Bryant. Yeah, so it's like we can do that stuff all day, but because of the noise of the quote-unquote draft nicks and the consensus board, because of all of that, because of the perceived arrogance that some people have sort of dry, I wouldn't call it dry snitching, but they kind of said it. They threw a rock and hit their hands. You could tell they were talking about young GMs like James Gladstone. So it's a bit of a thing that we're going to be watching and monitoring, because while there's a lot of goodwill because of 13-4, that'll go away if certain things start popping up, especially if there's a segment of the base that said they should have done this instead of doing that. And it turns out that lines up exactly with what you're seeing on the field. Oh, you're going to hear all about it. And you're about to hear about it from me right now. They made a trade yesterday for Daniel. I keep doing this with his name. I believe it is. I'm going to let Patricia Traynor pronounce it. I think it's Faalele. And I have had numerous, including our own Marquise Ogden on the squad show yesterday, numerous former NFL offensive linemen, as well as people in the business that I trust from behind the microphone, that tells me that kid can't play. And the Jaguars have low expectations, I guess, because it's just experience depth. But they gave up a 6th-round pick, and we have always talked about the 6th-round picks being – that's how they got Josh Cameron. So those picks are very valuable. We'll hit that and more here in just a second on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show sponsored and brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, man. Baseball fans, if you think you know who's hitting a home run today, you need to dial in on Daily Dingers over on FanDuel, man. It is the real deal. I sat there the other night and I watched Ronald Acuna come up to the plate, and I'm thinking like he's going to hit a home run, and he did it. But too late for me because I did not go and do what I need to do on FanDuel. It's easy to play. Just make your free pick of who you think is going to hit a home run in their game. And if you're right, you'll receive a profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. Don't be like me, man. Get in on it. Make sure you get over there right now. So if you're ready to play your game today, join all the action at FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com to play Daily Dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a homer. Play ball and swing for the fences on FanDuel, an official sports partner of Major League Baseball. All right, Jaguars made a trade yesterday. First of all, they needed to do something because their line is not ideal. It's not where you want them to be heading into the second week of the preseason. And this is not just because you want to get guys ready to go in the regular season, although it does have a lot to do with it. One thing that they really, really need to do is make sure that they have the Temptations ready to go. All 5 guys moving as one unit. However, this is more in tune with how do you evaluate the rest of your team? You got to function. If your offensive line isn't allowing you to throw the ball to receivers that are open, or if they can't block and you can't see if the running back knows what he's supposed to do, all of this stuff affects evaluation. And then if you're constantly turning the ball over on 3 and outs or whatever, and you're giving the ball right back to the other side of the ball, now your defensive guys may be playing too many snaps. And you have to play guys a little bit longer than you may want to, because you might start running out of bodies on that side of the ball, even though they got 90 players in camp. And I know I'm overstating it a little bit, but 10, 12, 15 plays makes a world of difference when you talk about guys that need reps, especially guys on offense, and you can't get a good look at them because you can't block anybody. And that didn't really play out that way last week against the New Orleans Saints, because when they got into their depth with the 3s and maybe even some of the 4s, they decided to turn the heat up and run the ball. But you have to understand they were running the ball against New Orleans' 3s and 4s after getting off to a very, very slow start. So it also determines whether or not you play your starters in the preseason. You may have a plan where you think, okay, I'm going to play them this week. I'm going to play them a little bit this week. This is the plan going into the preseason. But now that we're a little banged up, it affected practice already, because I heard that one of the sessions that should have been 11 on 11 ended up being 7 on 7 because they were thin on the offensive line. So when you do things like that, and it makes you have to adjust, every time you adjust, you're actually getting off your pivot a little bit, and you're getting off your square from some things that you wanted to do. That's why this trade is understandable. What's not understandable is they literally traded for a dude that's probably going to get cut, and they gave up a 6th-round pick, not a conditional draft pick, a 6th-round pick. I can guarantee you the reason why they were able to do that is because this dude was in free agency, man, and all he did, he signed a weird deal with the Giants where Daniel Faalele signed a deal with the Giants. He wasn't even guaranteed any money. Therefore, even if the Jaguars have him and he makes the roster and he leaves as a free agent next year, there's no compensatory picks attached to it, from what I understand. So I hope I'm right about that, but I do think that that's the case. So with him, it's like you gave up a 6th-round pick. We value draft picks around here because of what we have seen from James Gladstone and his philosophy. These 6th-round picks are guys that are absolutely. This is LaQuint Allen here. That's the 7th-round pick, but this is Zach Durfee. This is BJ Green. This is Danny Strigo. These are these guys. This is CJ Williams. This is Josh Cameron. That's what this is. These are the dudes that are making up a lot of what the Jaguars are going to do. And the Jaguars hit on their late picks, and these picks mean more to the Jaguars, or mean more to teams that know how to draft for what their needs are, than they do with other teams. This, to me, a 6th-round pick is a massive overpayment. And you say, okay, you would have taken a 7th round. Yeah, I would have taken a 7th. I would have done it for a 7th. I probably would have waited, but you probably can't wait from their perspective. So And maybe they look at it like this: oh, that was a pick that we got from somebody that we made a move with. It was loose change, so we use it as loose change. I get it, and we're not seeing the whole picture. But maybe this talks a little bit more to how bad they really believe the offensive line issues are with Pat McCary having surgery, and you don't know if he's ever going to play here. If again, and that's just me saying that only because I have back issues, and I know once you go under the knife how hard it is. And then I'm just sitting here in my office. Those guys are pushing each other around each and every day. Walker Little, day-to-day, kind of banged up. Wyatt Milum, day-to-day, banged up. Chuma Edoga, day-to-day, banged up. Cole Van Lanning, coming back from knee surgery, hasn't practiced all, off season. So you start looking at it from that perspective, you're like, man, that's 4 dudes that you expect to be in your rotation, in your daily offensive line rotation. That's a lot. At this point, there aren't a whole bunch of people just walking around here that can help your football team. So you got to make trades. And they made one. And I hate it. But nonetheless, he's a Jaguar now. Here's Patricia Traynor from Locked On Giants. I played this yesterday. I'll play it again for the sake of continuity, talking about the trade between the Giants and the Jaguars.
If you need any more proof that Giants head coach John Harbaugh isn't messing around, look no further than the team's most recent transaction. New York traded offensive lineman Daniel Faalele, who had followed Harbaugh to New York from Baltimore, to the Jacksonville Jaguars in exchange for a day 3 draft pick. Faalele, the Ravens' starting right guard the last 2 seasons, came into East Rutherford hoping to make a successful transition as a depth player at left guard. However, in his preseason debut, he was just awful, posting a 0.0 pass blocking efficiency rating that would have made the famed and fictitious Bluto Blutarski of the classic flick Animal House proud. But seriously, that the Giants were able to get a draft pick for a guy whose roster spot was hanging by a thread the more camp went on is quite a coup for general manager Joe Schoen, who now has 6 draft picks in 2027 to continue building up the roster.
At the expense of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So it's yet to be determined whether he is a contributor. It's yet to be determined whether or not this was, I don't know what pick they traded or if it was just an extra pick that they had, if they have an abundance of picks and it was like, look, this is a need for us right now. I don't know if they're worried about his pass protection stuff as much as they may feel like they need him to make sure that they can run the ball. Look, the dude is 6'8", about 360 pounds. The problem is he doesn't play like he's 6'8" and 360 pounds. 6'8", 360 is good when you're a security dude in an action film on Tubi or one of those in the 50 Cent Power Empire. It's not necessarily good when there's actually tape of you getting pushed around and looking like you don't know who to block. Again, this organization is run by people I trust, and they talk the talk when they say him and Liam Cohen, James Gladstone and Liam Cohen said they ever want to be where it's almost like never broke again. I don't ever want to be in a situation like we were in 2022 when we were with the Rams when we didn't have capable offensive linemen in depth. The EVP is a Hall of Famer, one of the greatest left tackles you've ever seen in your life. They know more than I do. They know more than we do about football. I don't like pocket watching. I know they have loose change sitting around and they probably feel like they can recoup that draft pick with a trade that they know they can make. Maybe they already have something worked out with someone. They say, if this doesn't work out, we're going to keep a dude for a while. But guess what? I'll call you. Thank you for calling me. If we get to the point where we need to make a move, maybe they already have an idea that some of their other people on their rosters, and we'll go through that here in segment number 3. Maybe they already have an idea that some of those guys won't be around and they'll be able to get some compensation and recoup that pick. Well, maybe this is a sign that they are absolutely desperate and they needed to make sure that they have someone who has been in an NFL game, started NFL games for an organization. You can say, okay, he started as the Ravens right guard for 2 years. He's going to be our 8th guy. It was worth it for us to make sure that we are where we need to be heading into the 2026 NFL season. We'll talk about that. We'll find some more answers and look through this roster and see where they may be deficient and where they maybe have too many people. We'll do it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Ross Jackson, host of the Locked On at Saints podcast, and today's Locked On episode is brought to you by our friends at Basque and Lather. I've been using Basque and Lather's all-natural, 100% organic hair care products for my beard for a couple of years now, and it's been a lifesaver because I used to have some bad beard care habits. I'm talking over-the-counter shampoo in the beard type stuff that created this brittle, scratchy, and uncomfortable beard that I just had to wear around all the time. But now the game done changed. Thanks to Basque and Lather, I got their beard care starter kit, which gave me shampoo, conditioner, oil balm, and their hair growth stimulator formula as well. And now my beard is full. It's soft but strong, and the confidence is on 10, and it's all thanks to Basque and Lather. Explore viral bestsellers and products of healthier hair of all types from Basque and Lather. Go to baskeandlatherco.com and use the promo code LOCKEDON for 20% off. That's 20% off at baskeandlatherco.com, code LOCKEDON.
All right. Keeping the foot on the gas here, going down the stretch. James Gladstone, the roster, the trade that he made yesterday, kind of got under my skin a little bit, man. But it is what it is. And like I said, I'll tell you I don't like it, but I'll tell you why, just like I did at the end of that segment, why I think the Jaguars had to do it. Certainly offensive linemen. The Jaguars, I believe, will be looking and scouring offensive linemen over these last couple of weeks of the preseason, especially if it's somebody that comes from the sort of system that they run here. And I just remind you, man, the reason why I'm sitting here tripping like this, and I know it was a different time and it was a different team, but the Jaguars actually traded, I believe it was a 6th-round pick for both Cole Van Lannon and for Ezra Cleveland, two guys that ended up starting. And that wasn't this regime now. That was the previous regime. But that's the value of having those picks. Cole Van Lannon was, I think, before the season started. Cole Van Lannon, in fact, was in an overcrowded room in Green Bay, and everybody knew he could play. So the Jaguars made a move for him. And a couple of years later, it netted him a big contract. Ezra Cleveland got here, and they gave him a contract too. So maybe I don't know. You look at it and say the kid can come in here and play well and get a contract. I mean, Mekhi Becton was given up on when he was with the Jets, and then he went to the Eagles and won a Super Bowl, and then he went to the Chargers and he stunk again. So that's a whole another thing for you to try to wrap your head around. Offensive line definitely will not be a place where the Jaguars will be cutting someone where you're going to go, man, they should have kept that guy. No, you can look at it and say, okay, Wyatt Milum, you need to turn it up a little bit because Emmanuel Pregnon, they put Pregnon at left guard and they moved the starting left guard, Ezra Cleveland, Wyatt Milum. They put him in your spot, the one that you're supposed to be manning. You were here a year early. You were here a year earlier than Emmanuel Pregnon. So that's supposed to be your spot. Pat McCary getting hurt, and you're supposed to be able to plug Wyatt Milum right in there, but you can't. You can't do it because if they could, they wouldn't be looking so desperate right now. So Milum was a 3rd-round pick, and these are the things that we're going to start looking at, saying, "Look, man, something is going on. He ain't been hurt. He needs to get going." But I'm glad they're not forcing it, and I'm glad they're not lying to themselves, saying, "No, he's our guy. He's our 3rd-round pick," because that's what the kind of stuff that happened in the past. Oh, this is his 2nd year. He got to go do it. Just because you want him to do it doesn't mean he's ready to do it. And you stick him in there, and then he looks terrible, and he's on his back, rolling around like Shaq did when he was 35 years old, with his feet in the air. There's nothing more miserable than seeing an offensive lineman get bull rushed, and he's turning over, and he's falling down, man, and rolling like a tumbleweed. That's maddening. And we used to see Luke Jokel. We saw Luke Fortner. It happened to a lot of people around here over some years. And that's why the Jaguar fans are so anxious, because one of the things is they listen and they know I've said that one of the things that could absolutely derail this football team, it's not your quarterback, it's not your skill position players, it ain't Travis Hunter. I said derail. It is this offensive line. It is a bugaboo. I know they made it a priority when they took over this team. I know Tony Baselli, I know how he thinks about it. And injuries can happen. It's not their fault. But that's where it'll lie on. That's where everybody's going to start pointing at. They're going to start saying, yeah, you took 2 tight ends and you took 2 running backs. You should have been stacking up on offensive line. I know the criticism is coming. But injuries happen to everyone. And maybe that's why they should have done it, right? Because injuries do happen to everyone. One good thing I can tell you about, I'm hearing good things about Jonah Monheim in the run game. And that's something to hang your hat on. He can improve in some other areas, but I'm hearing good things about Jonah Monheim in the run game. So maybe, that's something that's very good. And they might be able to even move him out the right guard. It's not ideal, but you just might, especially when they went out and they signed Mustafa, Sam Mustafa, who has played a lot and has a lot of experience as center to be the backup. But answers that need finding, maybe they go out and find a linebacker. And of course, I think they need to find a backup quarterback, but the likelihood that happens is very, very slim because of the optics. And the optics is he knows the offense. You have to go out and get somebody who doesn't know the offense, perhaps, who doesn't know and understand how the workflow goes and the game plan and all of that stuff. And maybe you just sacrifice a little bit of physical talent because Nick Mullins ain't that physically talented. Maybe you sacrifice that for a little bit of continuity. But those are really the only positions, like linebacker, offensive line, and backup quarterback, that I think may give a lot of trepidation to people in that building. I know it gives me, I think about it at night, and it gives me a little bit of anxiety. So we'll see if it works out. But much pressure on James Gladstone. Not just him, Tony Baselli, Liam Cohen, everyone, because since so much noise was made by people outside of the building about how they were drafting and how they were coming up getting talent, and then everybody saying, hey, man, Cleveland's only a quarterback away. That Travis Hunter trade really helped them. They got to get production out of Travis Hunter on both sides of the ball. It has to go as well as we think it can, and as well as it has to go and match the enthusiasm that we all have. Because if not, folks are going to still say you need to start solving problems instead of trying to find solutions. You got to fix the problems that you have, and that's not what the Jaguars do. The Jaguars are built right now to solve, to find solutions as opposed to solving problems. Big game tomorrow. We'll do a preview of tomorrow's game against Carolina, first home preseason game. We should know more later on today about whether or not the starters will go. The show tomorrow will be dedicated to telling you what you should expect. But just like each and every day, you should expect me to be here because Locked On NFL, Locked On Jaguars, it's your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen, and we will see you later.